Stop wasting time on bad leads. This BuildShip template pulls Stripe signups into a Google Sheet, so you can focus on your top prospects. Imagine having all your leads neatly organized, automatically ranked, and ready for action. Today, we're building an automated workflow to qualify leads directly from Stripe signups and add them to this database on Google Sheets. To get started, let's create a new workflow in our project. We can search for the lead qualifier to Google Sheets template. After remixing the template, we're ready to customize it for our use case. Let's look at the inputs. The template takes in the lead's name, email, and any context we want to pass through. Then we can follow the sticky notes to customize the rest of the workflow based on our company's needs. We can edit the company description to describe what we do. And we can edit the rating criteria based on what we're looking for: high, medium, and low. Then the workflow will extract the company name and URL from the email address, as long as it's not a generic email provider like Gmail or Yahoo. The next node gets the current date and time. Next, we have a branch where we check if we have enough information to justify spending our API credits on these AI tools to qualify the lead. If we don't have enough information, like we're missing the company name and there's no context, we're just going to add the name and email to the lead qualifier Google Sheet. To get that set up, just authenticate your Google account here and create an empty Google Sheet with the headers as shown here. This is what it should look like. Just copy the sheet URL and paste it in here to replace this, and make sure that the sheet name matches. If we do have enough information, we'll use the Perplexity API to summarize the professional background of the company and the lead. We'll pass in the person's name, the company name, email, and any context that we passed in through the input. To get this up and running, just add your Perplexity API key. Then we'll use the OpenAI API to summarize the lead. It also requires you to add an OpenAI API key. It's given the company description and the evaluation criteria, and is given the name, email, company, and the results of the Perplexity AI chat. We also give it a JSON schema so that we make sure the output matches what needs to go into our Google Sheet. Finally, we add the row to our Google Sheet. Make sure the sheet URL and sheet name match the above. It doesn't really matter what we're going to output here because we're not going to use it, so we'll leave it as is. Now we can test it out. Let's add a generic name and email, and can add some context to the lead. Just click test, and once it's done, we can see the results of the workflow here. We can also look at the individual outputs of every node. So by clicking this little play button, we can see the Perplexity output. We might not get this type of information for everybody, but it's a good start. With the lead rating, we can see that they output the fields in the correct structure. And let's see if it was added to our Google Sheet. Perfect. Now that we've tested the workflow, the last thing to do is add our triggers. We can have multiple triggers for our workflow. So first, let's set up the REST API call. All we need to do is hit connect, and the API is configured. So when you call this API, just make sure that these fields are included in the body. If you're not planning to use the REST API call, you can always delete it. Now let's set up the Stripe webhook so that anytime we get a new customer signup, this flow is triggered. We just need to add our Stripe webhook key, which you can find on the Stripe dashboard. After we enter the key, we just click connect, and the Stripe API should be connected. If we click get data, it should find the latest API requests. Because we don't have any recently, because we're using a test project, we're going to use the Stripe command line interface to generate a fake customer created. That should trigger an API request that we'll be able to see when we click get data. So now we have the latest customer account created. Now that the latest request is pulled, we can map the data to our inputs. So let's go into the data and find the name and email. We can leave context blank for now. We'll add those two to the schema. In email, let's replace that with the email. Name we can replace with the name. And for object, let's just leave it blank. But you can add any other piece of data that you'd like. And we'll click connect now that we have the inputs mapped. Let's go back to build. Now that we've set up our triggers, mapped our inputs, and configured the workflow, let's ship it. Now we can sit back, relax, and watch the leads pour in.